All right, so looks like we're gearing up for another deep dive,
Yeah.
this time into the world of 12-year-olds, tweens.
Tweens?
Fascinating, right?
Oh, yeah, they are fascinating.
But definitely no walk in the park.
No walk in the park at all. Don't worry, though. We've got your back for this deep dive.
What I think is really interesting is that we're not just talking about a single age here.
Right.
When we look at 12-year-olds, we're unpacking puberty,
Uh-huh.
social dynamics, even brain development.
It really is such a pivotal year for them.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a huge year.
And so much is happening.
Yeah.
We're talking physical changes,
Yeah.
emotional upheaval, the wild world of friendships.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and did I mention social media?
Of course, because everybody's got to mention social media.
Oh, that's a big one.
It's a huge one.
Huge.
Buckle up.
Buckle up, yeah.
So let's start with what might seem most obvious.
Right.
Puberty.
Yeah.
It's a period of massive change.
Huge change.
Huge change, and it impacts way more than just their outward appearance.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's break it down. What's actually happening in those tween bodies?
Okay.
I remember feeling so awkward and self-conscious at that age.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like everything felt weird.
Think of it as a hormonal power surge.
Okay, a power surge.
Yeah. For boys, it's voice changes, facial hair, that sudden spurt of growth.
Yeah,
And yeah, the acne and body odor that they're usually mortified by.
can only imagine. But you know, the book also mentioned something I had no idea about temporary breast enlargement in boys.
Yeah.
What?
It's more common than people think
Really?
and can be really distressing for boys if they don't understand what's happening.
Oh, I bet.
It's crucial for parents to be informed so they can reassure their sons that this is a normal part of puberty.
That's such a good point. Now, girls are on their own timeline, but they've got a whole other set of changes to deal with.
Exactly. We're talking menstruation, breast development, widening hips, and body hair growth. Plus, just like boys' acne and body odor become big concerns, there's also vaginal discharge, which can be confusing if girls aren't prepared for it.
You know, it makes you realize that even though we all went through it, puberty can feel like this mysterious, confusing time.
Yeah.
What advice does the book have for parents trying to navigate all of this?
I think one of the most important things the book highlights is the need for open communication.
Okay.
It encourages parents to start these conversations early,
Okay.
even before the physical changes become obvious.
Wow.
Answer their questions honestly and frankly, and don't shy away from topics that might feel awkward.
So it's about like creating that space where they feel comfortable
Yes.
coming to you with any questions or concerns.
Exactly. It's also about validating their feelings.
Okay.
Remember, these changes can be a really big deal for them, even if they seem small to us.
Right.
Let them know it's okay to feel awkward, excited, scared, or even all of those things at once.
I think it's easy for adults to forget how intense those feelings were.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just the physical changes.
Right.
It's how those changes make them feel about themselves.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Because all of this is happening while their brains are still developing,
Okay.
especially the prefrontal cortex.
Wait, remind me, what does the prefrontal cortex do again?
Okay, so that's the part of the brain
Uh-huh.
that's responsible for planning, decision-making, and impulse control.
Okay.
Essentially, it's the adulting part of the brain,
Got it.
and it's not fully developed in tweens.
So they're not quite thinking things through yet?
No, they're reacting more from their emotional centers.
Okay, so that explains the mood swings.
Yes.
And the drama.
All the drama.
But seriously, how can parents stay sane when their tween is going through all of this?
Well, the book offers a really fascinating analogy.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It compares the prefrontal cortex to a construction zone.
A construction zone.
It's still a work in progress, so parents need to provide that external scaffolding
Okay,
until their brains catch up.
I like that analogy. So what does that scaffolding look like in real life?
Well, it can take many forms. Setting clear boundaries and expectations is crucial. Having regular family check-ins to talk about what's going on is also helpful.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it's just about being that calm, reassuring presence when their emotions are running high.
That reminds me of something else the book emphasizes, teaching coping skills.
Yes.
Because, let's face it, life is stressful even for tweens.
Absolutely.
But they don't always have the tools to deal with that stress in healthy ways.
Exactly. And that's where parents come in. The book encourages us to teach them about deep breathing exercises.
Oh, yeah.
Mindfulness techniques, even just having a creative outlet to channel their emotions.
So it's like giving them a toolbox
Yeah.
they can use when things get tough.
Exactly.
I love that approach.
I think
It's about empowering them, not just rescuing them.
Exactly. And, when we talk about those intense emotions, we can't ignore The social roller coaster tweens are on.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, our friendships are going through major shifts, too.
Oh, yeah. Friendship drama at that age is a whole other level.
It is.
The book actually calls it friendship frenzy,
I love that.
which I think is pretty accurate.
Hmm.
Why is this age such a pivotal point for friendships?
Well, it's all about belonging.
Okay.
Tweens are trying to figure out who they are, and their peer group plays a huge role in that process.
Uh-huh.
They crave acceptance, and that can lead to some interesting choices.
Like changing their behavior to fit in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book talks about how they might change their style, their opinions, even their interests to match their friends.
Wow.
And this is where peer pressure can become a powerful force,
Yeah.
both positive and negative.
So how can parents guide them towards healthy friendships?
Okay.
What are the red flags we should be looking out for?
Well, the book suggests paying attention to sudden changes in their behavior.
Okay.
Like withdrawing from activities they used to enjoy or becoming overly secretive about who they're hanging out with.
Uh-huh.
It's also important to talk about bullying both in person and online.
That's a good reminder that these social dynamics are playing out in the digital world too.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the elephant in the room, social media.
Here we go.
The book calls it digital dilemmas. And I think every parent can relate to that.
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword, right?
It is. It really is.
On the one hand, social media allows them to connect with friends, express themselves creatively, and explore their interests.
Right.
But it also exposes them to cyberbullying, unrealistic beauty standards, and potentially addictive behaviors.
It's a lot for any 12-year-old to handle,
Yeah,
especially with their brains still under construction.
it is.
So how do we strike that balance between letting them explore this world and protecting them from its dangers?
Honestly, there are no easy answers.
I figured as much.
But the book stresses the importance of open communication. Know what platforms your kids are on,
Yep.
who they're interacting with, and what kind of content they're consuming.
Uh-huh.
And most importantly, talk to them about how it makes them feel.
I think it's easy to underestimate how much social media can affect their self-esteem and body image.
It is.
They're already going through so many changes. And then you add the pressure of presenting a perfect online persona. It's a recipe for disaster.
It is. It's crucial to remind them that what they see online isn't always real.
That's such a good point.
People often present curated versions of themselves,
Uh-huh.
highlighting the good and hiding the bad.
Right.
It's also important to set boundaries around social media use.
Yeah.
Have clear rules about screen time.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to have those devices turned off at certain times of the day, especially during family time.
I think it's also important for parents to model healthy digital habits themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Because let's be real, most adults struggle with this too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If we're constantly checking our phones, scrolling through social media during dinner, and stressing over online interactions,
Yeah.
our kids are going to pick up on that.
Right.
We need to show them that it's okay to disconnect, to prioritize real-life connections, and to use technology in a mindful way.
So it's about setting that example and creating a home environment where those values are reinforced.
Exactly. And, as we're talking about family, it's important to remember that the family dynamic is shifting, too.
Kids crave independence, but they still need their parents, just maybe in different ways than before.
The book calls this section Family Matters. What kind of advice does it offer for navigating these changing relationships?
Well, the book emphasizes that communication is more important than ever.
Okay.
It's about listening to your tweens, really listening to their thoughts and feelings, even when you don't agree with them.
Right?
It's about setting clear boundaries, but also respecting their growing independence.
So it's not about controlling every aspect of their lives,
Right.
but about guiding them, being there for them,
Yes.
and allowing them to make their own choices, even if they make mistakes along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be tough for parents who are used to being in charge.
I bet.
But the book reminds us that making those choices, even the wrong ones, is a crucial part of growing up.
Right.
It's how they learn and develop their own sense of responsibility.
The book also talks about how conflict is inevitable, but it's about resolving those conflicts constructively and teaching those conflict resolution skills. Because those are skills they'll need for the rest of their lives, right?
Right.
Knowing how to communicate effectively, how to compromise, how to advocate for themselves, those are invaluable life lessons.
It makes you realize that parenting a tween isn't just about getting through each day.
Right.
It's about equipping them for the future.
Yes.
And that's a pretty amazing responsibility.
It really is. And speaking of equipping them for the future, there's another key aspect of the tween years that the book highlights:
Okay.
the importance of teaching them about healthy relationships.
Because they're at that age where romantic relationships start to become a thing. right?
They do.
But it's about more than just dating, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about understanding what a healthy relationship looks like.
Okay.
Whether it's with friends, family, or romantic partners.
Right.
It's about teaching them about respect, boundaries, communication, and consent.
And the book stresses that this education starts at home.
Yes.
The way we model relationships, the way we communicate with each other, it all sends a message.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's about being mindful of our own behavior, but also having those open and honest conversations with our tweens about what's acceptable and what's not.
And it's okay if they don't have all the answers yet.
Oh, yeah.
It's about starting the conversation, planting those seeds, and letting them know they can always come to us with questions.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most.
Yeah?
That our tweens know they're loved,
Mhm.
they're supported, and they're not alone in navigating this crazy, confusing, but ultimately amazing time of their lives.
And you know what else is amazing about this age?
What's that?
Their sense of humor starts to really develop.
Oh, yeah?
They get sarcasm, they start telling jokes. It can be a real bright spot for parents.
It's true. Even when they're driving us crazy, they can also make us laugh.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a good reminder that even though the tween years can be tough,
Right.
they're also filled with moments of joy and connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of moments of joy and connection, the book has a whole section on the importance of family rituals.
Oh, nice.
I know that's something that's always been really important in my family.
Me too.
Whether it's Friday night pizza night or Sunday morning pancakes, those rituals create a sense of connection and stability.
Uh-huh.
That's so important for tweens, especially during a time when everything else in their lives feels so unpredictable.
Absolutely. It's about creating those shared experiences, those moments that they can look back on with fondness, even when they're adults.
It doesn't have to be anything elaborate.
No.
It's the simple things, the consistency, the feeling of belonging that matters most.
Exactly. And you know what else is great about family rituals?
What's that?
They can evolve as our kids grow.
Oh, that's a good point.
What works for them as young children might not work for them as tweens, and that's okay.
Right. It's about being flexible, adapting to their changing needs, and finding new ways to connect.
Exactly. And along those lines, the book also talks about capturing those memories,
Okay.
whether through photos, videos, or even just journaling.
Because time really does fly by,
It does.
especially during those tween years.
It's like they're changing right before our eyes.
This really are.
Yeah.
One minute they're little kids and the next minute they're teenagers.
I know.
Taking the time to document those moments, those milestones, those everyday interactions, it's a gift,
Yes.
both for us and for them.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just a quick snapshot, a funny anecdote jotted down in a notebook.
Uh-huh.
It's all about preserving those precious memories.
You know, thinking about all of this makes me realize how much pressure tweens are under these days.
Uh-huh.
The world is so different from when we were growing up.
Absolutely. They're constantly bombarded with messages about how they should look, how they should behave, what they should achieve.
Right.
And then there's the added pressure of social media, which we've already talked about.
Oh, yeah.
It's no wonder so many tweens struggle with anxiety and self-doubt.
It's heartbreaking, really.
Yeah.
And that's why it's more important than ever for us as parents to be that safe haven for them. To be that constant source of love and support no matter what.
To remind them that they're perfect just the way they are.
Yeah.
And that their worth isn't defined by their grades,
Right.
their social media following, or what other people think.
You know, one of the things I've learned from raising tweens is that it's okay to not have all the answers.
Absolutely. In fact, I think admitting that we don't know everything is actually a sign of strength.
Because it shows them that we're still learning, that we're open to new ideas, and that we're not afraid to ask for help when we need it.
And that's a valuable lesson for them to learn, right?
Yeah.
Because none of us has it all figured out.
No, we don't.
Yeah,
But we can figure it out together.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of family.
And that's what this book is all about, right?
Yeah.
It's about giving parents the tools and the support they need to navigate the tween years with confidence and grace.
And to remind them that even though it can be challenging, it's also an incredibly rewarding journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to share a personal anecdote
Okay.
that I think really highlights the importance of letting our tweens make their own choices,
Right.
even when it means letting go of a little bit of control. I remember when my niece was about 12, she became absolutely determined to dye a streak of her hair purple.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't exactly my style, but I knew her parents were struggling with how to handle it.
Oh, I can imagine that's definitely a classic tween power move.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
They were worried about what people would think about it being inappropriate for school, but the more they tried to talk her out of it, the more insistent she became.
It's like they were accidentally fueling the fire.
Exactly. It became this battle of wills. Finally, after a lot of back and forth, they decided to let her do it.
Okay.
And you know what? It was fine.
I bet she felt so seen and heard. Did it change anything for her parents?
It was a turning point for them. They realized that picking their battles was essential. Not every choice their daughter made had to be a power struggle. It was about finding those moments where they could give her a bit more autonomy and trust her to make her own decisions.
That's such a great example of how letting go can actually strengthen the relationship.
Yeah.
It's about shifting from that parent-child dynamic to a more collaborative one.
Exactly. And the book talks about how important that is, especially as tweens enter middle school.
Okay.
It's a huge transition, both academically and socially.
Oh, yeah, middle school. It's like a whole new world. More challenging classes, different teachers for each subject, and the pressure to fit in is amplified.
It is. And remember that prefrontal cortex we talked about?
Yeah.
Still under construction?
Oh, yeah.
So they're not always equipped to handle all that change and responsibility.
I can imagine.
The book actually calls it middle school madness,
That's pretty accurate.
which I think is pretty fitting.
Yeah. So what can parents do to help their tweens navigate this often overwhelming experience?
Well, the book stresses the importance of organization and time management skills. Middle school is often the first time they have to juggle multiple deadlines, long-term projects, and a heavier homework load.
That's a big step up from elementary school. Any tips for parents whose kids are suddenly like drowning in assignments?
Well, the book suggests creating a family calendar
Okay.
where everyone can see upcoming deadlines and appointments.
That's a good idea.
It also encourages teaching them how to break down large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay.
And here's a key insight. Help them advocate for themselves.
What do you mean by that?
It's about encouraging them to speak up when they need help,
Okay.
to ask questions in class, and to communicate with their teachers if they're feeling overwhelmed.
Okay.
Middle school is a great time to start building those self-advocacy muscles.
That's so important. It's about shifting from the parent being the one who manages everything to giving the tween the tools to manage themselves.
Exactly. And it can be tough for parents to let go of that control. But the book reminds us that middle school is a crucial time for kids to start developing that sense of independence and responsibility for their own learning.
And it's not just about academics, right? Middle school is also a time when social dynamics can feel really intense.
Absolutely. It's where cliques start to form.
Oh, yeah.
Social hierarchies become more pronounced, and the pressure to conform can be overwhelming.
Right.
The book actually mentions a study that found
Right.
social rejection activates the same pain centers in the brain as physical injury for tweens.
Wow. That's intense. So it's no wonder they're so sensitive to social cues and drama.
Exactly. And this is where those coping skills we talked about earlier become so important.
Yeah.
They need healthy ways to manage those feelings of rejection, disappointment, or frustration that are inevitably going to come up.
And it's a good reminder that parents need those coping skills too.
Oh, for sure.
Because let's be real, dealing with tween drama can be exhausting.
Absolutely. Self-care isn't just for tweens. Parents need to make sure they're taking care of themselves too,
Right.
so they can show up for their kids in a calm and supportive way.
You know, as we're talking about all of these challenges, I'm struck by how much this stage of parenting is about finding that delicate balance.
It really is.
Balancing structure with freedom support, with independence, and letting go while still being there for them.
You've hit the nail on the head. And it's a constant process of adjustment.
Yeah.
What works one day might not work the next. But the book emphasizes that being present, being patient, and keeping those lines of communication open can make all the difference.
Speaking of communication, one of the topics the book really delves into is how to have those tough conversations with your tween.
Oh, yes. Because let's face it, there are going to be topics that are uncomfortable, awkward, or even downright challenging to discuss.
Things like sex, drugs, alcohol, relationships.
Exactly. And the book doesn't shy away from these topics. It offers practical advice on how to approach them in a way that's age-appropriate, informative, and open.
I think a lot of parents dread those conversations.
I'm sure they do.
But the book really emphasizes that avoiding them can actually be more harmful in the long run.
It's about creating that space where they feel safe coming to you with any questions or concerns. And remember, you don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
Sometimes the most important thing is just to listen, to validate their feelings, and to let them know that you're there for them no matter what.
And it's okay to admit that you're still learning too.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as parents we feel like we need to have it all figured out. But the reality is we're all figuring this out as we go.
That's so true. And I think modeling that vulnerability can actually be really powerful for our kids. It shows them that it's okay to not be perfect, to make mistakes, and to ask for help when you need it.
And that's a message that I think is especially important for tweens. They're already dealing with so much pressure to be perfect, to fit in, to achieve. It's a relief to know that they don't have to have it all figured out either.
Right. It's about giving them permission to be themselves, to embrace their quirks, and to find their own path.
And that's where the book's emphasis on fostering a growth mindset comes in.
Yes.
It's about teaching them that mistakes are opportunities for learning, that challenges are a chance to grow, and that their abilities aren't fixed.
It's about shifting their perspective from, I'm not good at this, to, I'm not good at this yet.
I love that.
It's about instilling that belief that they can achieve anything they set their minds to as long as they're willing to put in the effort.
And that's such a powerful message because it gives them that sense of hope and optimism even when things get tough.
Exactly. And, one of the things that the book really emphasizes is that fostering a growth mindset isn't just about what we say to our kids.
Okay.
It's about how we react to their successes and failures.
That's such a good point because our actions speak louder than our words.
Absolutely. So if they come home with a bad grade, instead of getting angry or disappointed, we can ask them, what did you learn from this? How can you approach it differently next time?
Right.
It's about focusing on the effort and the process, not just the outcome.
I think it's also important to celebrate their successes, both big and small.
Yes, and not just the academic achievements. It could be anything from mastering a new skill to overcoming a fear to simply trying something new.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing their effort and their growth.
Thinking about all of this, I'm reminded of that quote by Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
That's such a powerful quote. And I think it applies perfectly to parenting tweens.
It does.
It's not about lecturing them or controlling them. It's about creating those positive, supportive experiences that will shape who they become.
It's about building that foundation of trust, respect, and love that will carry them through the ups and downs of adolescence and beyond.
And that's what this book is all about, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about empowering parents to create that kind of environment for their tweens.
It's about giving them the tools and the support they need to navigate this challenging but ultimately rewarding stage of parenting.
Absolutely. And speaking of rewards, one of the most rewarding aspects of parenting tweens is watching them develop their own unique personalities and interests.
It's like they're coming into their own, figuring out who they are and what they're passionate about.
And sometimes those passions might surprise us.
Oh, for sure. I remember when my daughter suddenly became obsessed with bird watching. I had no idea she even cared about birds.
That's fantastic. It's those moments of discovery that make parenting so exciting.
And it's a reminder that our kids aren't just mini versions of ourselves.
Right.
They're their own people with their own unique perspectives and interests.
And our job as parents is to nurture those interests, even if they don't always align with our own.
It's about supporting their exploration, even if it takes them down paths we never expected.
And sometimes it even takes them away from us, at least temporarily.
That's right. As they become more independent, they might spend more time with their friends, explore new activities, and push those boundaries a bit further.
It can be a bittersweet experience. On the one hand, we want them to spread their wings and experience the world. But on the other hand, it can be hard to let go.
It's that age-old parenting dilemma, right?
It is.
Wanting to protect them while also knowing they need to experience life for themselves.
And finding that balance is a constant challenge. But the book reminds us that letting go little by little is essential for their growth.
It's about trusting that we've equipped them with the skills and values they need to make good choices, even when we're not there to guide them.
And that's a leap of faith for any parent. But it's also incredibly liberating, both for them and for us.
It's about releasing that grip and allowing them to become the amazing individuals they're meant to be.
And, as we're talking about letting go, I think it's important to acknowledge that this process can be emotional for parents, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to watch our kids grow up and become more independent.
There can be feelings of sadness, loss, even a bit of grief, as we realize that our role in their lives is changing. And that's okay.
It's important to allow ourselves to feel those emotions.
And to remember that it's a natural part of the parenting journey.
But it's also important to remember that even as they become more independent, they still need us.
Maybe not in the same way they did when they were younger, but they still need our love, our support, our guidance.
And sometimes they just need a shoulder to cry on or a listening ear.
And that's a role that we can continue to play even as they navigate the challenges of adolescence and adulthood.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm thinking about all the parents out there who are in the trenches of raising tweens right now.
It can be a tough gig for sure, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, remember that you're not alone. Every parent of a tween is facing similar challenges.
And this book is such a valuable resource for navigating those challenges with grace and confidence.
It's filled with practical advice,
Yeah.
insightful research, and real-life examples that can help you feel more prepared and empowered.
And remember, you've got this. Even when it feels like you're losing your mind, there's always that glimmer of hope, that reminder that this too shall pass.
And that someday, you'll look back on these years with a mix of fondness and relief.
Maybe even a bit of nostalgia for those crazy, chaotic, but ultimately unforgettable tween years. As we're reflecting on all of this, I'm struck by how much this stage of parenting is about letting go.
It's true.
Yeah.
We pour so much into those early years. But as tweens emerge, it's almost like we have to shift gears.
We do. It becomes about giving them the space to stumble a bit, to find their own footing.
It's almost like we're shifting from being the gardener who carefully tends to every sprout to the one who provides the sunlight and the water and then steps back to let nature take its course.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's not always easy. We're programmed to protect our kids, to shield them from harm.
Right.
But the book reminds us that true strength comes from facing challenges and developing resilience.
So how do we as parents navigate that tension, between wanting to protect them and knowing they need to experience those bumps in the road?
Well, the book emphasizes that it's not about letting go completely. It's about finding that sweet spot between support and independence. It's about being there for them when they fall, but also encouraging them to get back up and try again.
And I think that's where those open lines of communication become so crucial. It's about creating that space where they feel comfortable coming to us when they need help, but also trusting them to handle things on their own when they can.
And that trust is a two-way street. It's about believing in their abilities even when they doubt themselves. And it's about showing them that we respect their decisions even when we don't necessarily agree with them.
It's about letting go of that need to control every aspect of their lives and embracing the messy, unpredictable beauty of watching them blossom into their own unique selves.
And as they're blossoming, it's important to remember that the world they're growing up in is vastly different from the one we experience.
Oh, absolutely. They're facing pressures and challenges that we never even dreamed of, social media being one of the biggest ones.
And it's not just social media, it's the constant bombardment of messages about what they should look like, how they should behave, what they should achieve. It's no wonder so many tweens are struggling with anxiety, depression, and self-esteem issues.
So how do we help them navigate this increasingly complex and often overwhelming world?
Well, the book offers a few really insightful suggestions. One is to focus on building their resilience. It's about teaching them coping mechanisms for dealing with stress setbacks and disappointment. It's about helping them develop a growth mindset so they see challenges as opportunities for learning and growth.
And it's about reminding them that their worth isn't tied to their achievements, their appearance, or their social media following.
Exactly. It's about helping them cultivate a strong sense of self-worth that comes from within, not from external validation.
And I think that starts with us as parents modeling those values, showing them that we prioritize our own well-being, that we embrace our imperfections, and that we value kindness, compassion, and authenticity over perfection and popularity.
It's about creating a home environment where they feel safe to be themselves, to express their emotions, to make mistakes, and to know that they're loved unconditionally.
And, as we're talking about love and support, I think it's important to acknowledge that parenting tweens can be emotionally draining.
Oh, absolutely. It's a roller coaster of highs and lows, moments of pride and joy mixed with frustration, exasperation, and even a bit of heartbreak.
And it's okay to admit that it's hard, that we don't always have the answers, and that we need support too.
Exactly. It's not a sign of weakness to reach out for help, whether it's from our partner, our friends, our family, or even a therapist. It's about recognizing that we don't have to do this alone.
And that's one of the things I love about this book. It doesn't just offer advice, it creates a sense of community. It reminds us that there are millions of parents out there going through the same things, facing the same challenges, and celebrating the same triumphs.
It's a reminder that we're all in this together, navigating the uncharted waters of tweenhood one day at a time.
And, even with all the challenges, there's something truly magical about this stage of development. It's a time of incredible growth, discovery, and transformation.
It's like watching a butterfly emerge from its cocoon. They're shedding their childhood skin and becoming the amazing individuals they were always meant to be.
And our job as parents is to witness that transformation with wonder, to guide them with love, and to celebrate every step along the way.
Because these tween years, as fleeting as they may seem, will shape who they become for the rest of their lives.
So to all the parents out there who are in the thick of it, remember that you're doing an amazing job. Embrace the chaos, find the joy, and don't forget to laugh along the way.
And remember, this book is a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to dive deeper into the world of tweens. It's packed with practical advice, expert insights, and real-life stories that will leave you feeling more informed, empowered, and connected.
We highly recommend checking it out. You can find a link to purchase it on Amazon in the description of this episode.
So what resonated most with you today? And what aspect of the tween world are you most curious to explore further? Maybe it's diving deeper into communication strategies, understanding the impact of social media, or learning more about fostering independence. Whatever it is, keep learning, keep exploring, and remember, you've got this.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tweens. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep asking questions, and remember the journey is just as important as the destination as the